Chaos Legion is a severely flawed PS2 Capcom title, which holds a special place in my heart, and what could have been the start of a promising series was ultimately cut short by localization results that ended up ruining the reputation of the game. Around 2017, when information on the next Devil May Cry game started leaking, details were shared about how it was the biggest game in the series, with 3 playable characters. Dante and Nero will return as expected, but a completely new character would be introduced, only being described as someone who relied on summons to carry the battle. What would later disappoint me in terms of expectations initially fueled the idea that they were about to pull some callouts for a little game that deserved it for a long time. In the early 2000s, Capcom not only blessed the GameCube with the title Capcom 5, but also contributed to the PlayStation 2 library, which to this day is still one of the best in terms of quantity and quality. Some major games for the system include the start of such franchises like Devil May Cry, Monster Hunter and Onimusha. Not only that, but they technically also released God Hand and Okami 2, so their track record was at an all-time high. Even so, they still had their development troubles, one such time being the infamous Devil May Cry 2, which shared the same development time frame with another forgotten Capcom title. Releasing just a few months after the Japanese release of Devil May Cry 2, Chaos Legion is, unknowingly, an action game based on Tozo Ubukata's novels of the same name, with the first volume out of the 7 being the base for this game. Unfortunately, I don't have the means to read any of them, as I would like to see how they went ahead with the world and its characters, so I can only guess how much liberty they took with the original work. Described as a gothic opera, the story begins with the protagonist, Sig, a knight of the Dark Glyphs, who is on a quest under command of the Order of Saint Oberia to find his former friend, Victor Delacroix, who was stolen the Forbidden Book, Apocrypha of Isaac, and to stop him from releasing the evil spirit Azrael, who will destroy the 3 planes of existence.
Awesome. Sela, why? 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 You should understand. No! You don't understand. I knew.
That sure is a lot of names, so I'm just gonna resume it real quick. One of your bros got drunk one day and kinda stabbed the girlfriend of the group, and then proceeds to think that you did it. Now he just wants to turn everything to delicious chews, so everyone can be together. I bet you've seen anime before. I will assume you already know how this goes. While the story is badly presented, with some of the jankiest voice acting and cutscene editing,
follow me, Zeke, for your atonement is waiting for you. Come see the hidden truth of this world.
its aesthetic saves it in the end, with strong roots in Gothic architecture, blends elements of both mechanical and organic nature to create this alternative age of Renaissance, where the power of religious groups leads to the evolution of dark arts and the control of spirits of bone, flesh and metal. It's all wrapped up in this dirty and grotesque feeling, something that extends to every single aspect of the game, from the UI to the in-game world. One could also make a point of how shunibyo it all is, but I would like to believe that this was not a product of such concept, but a contributor to the growing cause. All the elements are here: the sad protagonist with a tragic past, the edgy and inconvenient clothes, violence being a main focus of the action, and a plethora of complex yet meaningless concepts. The multiple types of font, the clusterfuck of images overlaid on top of each other, with random blurbs of unreadable text just thrown everywhere. I love it all, and I ain't afraid to say that I would like to see it more, but this is something of a product of its time, that early 2000s angst that was expressed in these fictional dystopias of Rust. And yet, the only lasting impression I had over all of these years is of how unforgiving it was, with some enjoyable systems sprinkled in. But considering I was just a stupid kid back then, I could be completely wrong on both points. So now, here I am, on a journey for a definite opinion about this game, and hoping I can rediscover an underrated classic. A common tale that people tend to pass around is that this game was solely a tech demo for Capcom to experiment with a PS2, targeting a solid 6 FPS mark while filling the screen with the AI-controlled enemies. This meant that everything else had to be cut down for the system to be able to handle the task. Simplistic map designs with barely any side content and Silent Hill levels of fog obscuring the already small arenas to be able to achieve their target performance.
Whoa, slow down, babe.
You see, this was the first mark against it. After the success of the original Devil May Cry, game journalists of the day were all expecting that from the point onwards for Capcom to just outshine themselves, DMC being now the standard for action games. and not only the sequel for that ruined the ground for the next game, but the people misunderstood the genre it was going for. Yes, it was an action game, but the focus was much more Musou, with the strength of the enemies lying on their numbers rather than their skill. Dynasty Warriors 4 came out just a few weeks earlier, and while it was an already refined series after some sequels, the weightless combat was something that always left me uninterested on this genre. It did have a big cast of characters to play as, but the combat itself never felt too satisfying. While in Chaos Legion, you felt it immediately on the basic attack combo, with the final attack having this longer delay from the starting rhythm that pays back with a hefty impact, sending most of the monsters flying. Maybe that's why people got the genre confused, as the feeling of the combat was considerably better from what was expected from its supposed roots. So, the animations are pretty good, and the combat has a pretty nice weight to it, but how about variety? That was the next problem that is immediately noticeable after the first room. You got a basic 4-string combo attack, an attack that differs if you're jumping or falling down, a cool idea but kinda awkward to use lock-on, and that's it. Beside that, you get 2 slots for which to equip the main focus of the game, the Legions, with 7 unlockable monsters in total for Sig to use in combat. These are Guilt, a humanoid swordsman mainly focusing on melee attacks and dealing damage to organic monsters. Hatred, a hand-to-hand powerhouse that is also great at damaging organic monsters. Malice, the go-to legion for long-range attacks and dealing damage to metallic enemies. Arrogance. I'm gonna be honest with you, I never once used them, as it was mostly for defense and what I wanted was to deal damage, not tank it. So, sorry my man. Flood, the lightning-quick legion that lets you jump higher and dodge with style, which can also electrify metal enemies. Blasphemy is a bomb that you can kick to detonate at long distances and be cool in general. Then there's Thanatos, but I will talk about him later, as this game starts by pulling a Symphony of the Night, with Sig starting with the strongest legion available, letting you tear down through everything with ease, but later is destroyed for plot reasons and becomes an extra incentive to replay older stages so you can regain his power. While in solo mode, Sig deals a bit more damage and moves faster, but as with every arena is filled with enemies, you'll quickly want to call upon your legion to deal some real damage, trading Sig's movement speed and personal attack power for companions that cover more ground. Slowly walking while they destroy the enemies does look pretty cool too. When summoned, you can switch between 2 modes, an aggressive mode where your legion will attack by their own, and a formation mode, protecting your surroundings while only attacking when you do. Even so, you must be careful, as if your legion takes damage, a portion of your soul energy gets depleted, and if the meter hits 0, the crest will break, forcing you to gain a certain amount of soul back before being able to use them again. Also, you can do a special skill which also spends the meter in exchange of a powerful attack, with some being more useful than others, while some are the sole reason you are using them in the first place. Not only that, when equipping a legion, you can stat bonuses and extra abilities to further expand your repertoire, like a charge attack, double jumping or dodge cancelling. But those must be unlocked first with the experience that you gain when fighting enemies. Okay, so all of that sounds pretty cool, right? Something like Devil May Cry 3, but instead of styles, you equip legions which change your playstyle, adapting to each stage as you go. But then it happens. Stage 2 goes by and the enemies are kind of the same. The maps are mostly crooked corridors, and even though you have new legions, you don't feel that powerful anymore. Stage 3, you get Malice, and while you're trying to figure out a new legion, you mash through the tutorial by mistake. You hope that it wasn't anything too important. I mean, it is a video game, you played those before, especially action ones. You can probably figure out what they wanted to say. Meanwhile, the game keeps making you kill way too many enemies very slowly, because they keep respawning on what seems infinitely. But if you don't do it, you can't kill the target monster to advance, because it's surrounded by turrets that keep shooting not only your ass, and also breaking your legion. And that is kinda frustrating. There was also the tutorial prompt that said that monster generators get weaker when they stop producing monsters, so I understand that as a fancy way to explain that just kill the giant pool of enemies before the target. There is no other way. Unfortunately, while trying stuff out, you die, and discover that you can either restart the match from the very beginning, or quit to the menu and only gain half the experience you obtained in that stage. That doesn't sound too bad, but you go back and try the stage again, beating it and advancing to the next one. Here the old metallic versus organic enemies thing makes more sense, as melees can instantly take out these quick flying enemies with their arrows, while everyone else being kinda useless. So the game just explained that you will want a legion that does good damage to organic enemies, another to the metallic enemies. That's kinda sad, as there might be combinations of legions that you want to try out, but if both only do good damage to organic or vice versa, you'll probably take 3 times the amount of time because you don't have the correct legions. And that becomes apparent very quickly, as you might have equipped Guilt and Blasphemy on your 3rd stage, because, you want to try out new things. It will quickly get your ass beaten because there's a bunch of high-speed metallic enemies that show you around, and you can actually eat them at a good pace. Even so, you power through the stage only to die very close to the end, so you actually exit the menu and get the alpha of the XP that they were talking about, just so you can discover that total comes up to peanuts. Shitty peanuts even. You can't upgrade a single thing, not for the new legion you just acquired, neither for the previous legions which are supposed to be your strongest. And now you realize, wait, I can barely gain XP to level my legions, and the game is pretty hard, so if I constantly try out new legions, I'll spread the XP gain too much, I won't be able to level up, because the XP requirement for each level is way too high. Okay, but you do get items throughout the level that raise permanently your stats like health, attack and defense. Maybe you can kinda grind out those if you keep restarting. Nope, those only stay if you manage to complete the stage. Okay then you can just play the previous stages. Nope, can't replay old stages. Then, what are you supposed to do? Well, you can actually stage select, but you got to beat stage 9 first. And how are you supposed to get there in the first place, you might ask? Well, get good. In the meanwhile, you'll probably want to read the tutorials to see if you are missing something, maybe a mechanic that you skipped by mistake. Yeah, about that. You only get the tutorial prompts once and that's it. If you want to see them again, you got to start from the beginning. So now let's imagine that from this exact point, you start again and focus on just the 2 starting legions. And actually be careful to not mash through the tutorials that randomly pop up. You somehow discover that you get 4 times the amount of XP when you kill a monster with a counter hit. But in the end, that is a system that is too bothersome to keep in mind, especially when you get the enemies and your legions just attacking everywhere, so there's no real way to capitalize on that. The game also brought up the point that some monsters have weak points. Okay. Which ones? Maybe why not put a bestiary where some tips will be unlocked depending on how much you killed of each monster. That would be pretty cool, being able to check out the 3D models, maybe concept art or some text to unlock and learn about the world. Nope, none of that here. Even when you get new legions, you continue using the first 2 because, of course, it's the only 2 that are now leveled up and can keep up with the enemies in the new levels. You could use all of the XP items that you got into another legion, but it wouldn't even be close to enough for a single level up. Maybe that's why they're the only ones that are displayed in the American cover. They knew what they were doing. You continue to go through the game, but all the map objectives are either to kill all the monsters or kill a specific target monster, nothing more. And the maps, man, the maps.
The passages are intertwined, diverged, and complicated. Those who enter lose their sense of direction and get lost.
In the middle of all that, you figure out that if you spam the attack order button to send the legion to attack, they attack much faster. Like when you discover that rolling in ocarina of time moves you faster than just running. So now you just spend the entire adventure rolling and hearing Link screaming. But in this case, it's this effect that just covers everything up all the time, plus the fact that melee shoots arrows as fast as you can press the button, without any type of limitation. So if you want those big damage numbers, I hope you like having carpal tunnel. By stage 7, you got all the legions, besides Thanatos at least. So what will you get now from each stage boss? A spiritual gem proceeds to drop, promising to unlock sealed powers for one of your legions. Oh cool, maybe these will give you the edge to start using the other legions. No, this only unlocks further things to level up with the experience you barely have. But then you get to level 9 and what is this? You can play as another character? And it's actually cool? Oh wow, this is fun! The animations look so cool and the focus on the gunplay is pretty different from Sig, so this is pretty refreshing. What's more, the stats don't even matter and it's all pretty self-contained, so you get a simpler level where you don't have to worry about leveling up the wrong legions for a moment. It does feel pretty cool to play as Arcia, but the melee's problem is still present, as you shoot faster with the faster button mashing, so you're just continuing to level your carpal tunnel again. Anyway, you go back to Sig, and now you can use the level select. Okay, so you now go back to older levels and get some experience while trying out some other legion combinations. suddenly the game starts being fun again. Accompanied by one stronger legion, you try out some stuff, level up, get new abilities, and that is pretty fun, even if it takes a bit too long. In the journey, you acquire the burning power of John Madden and start shoulder tackling every living being that stands in your way, and sometimes even letting your legion parry attacks and throw enemies around. Replaying old stages do reward you with other spiritual gems to unlock other legion's powers. So after a few hours of replaying the same level for XP, you manage to get some legion enchantments to level 4. What this means is that abilities and skills that the legion gave you are now permanent, even if not equipped. So now I can use double jumps, dodge cancels, charge attacks and much more, provided that I farmed enough XP and got the spiritual gems to unlock the last tier of upgrades. It took a lot of time, but 6 moveset is now varied enough to be fun without solely relying on legions. I can even do some pretty cool combos, so maybe, just maybe, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but the game actually gets good after 10 to 15 hours. Stage 10 is a bit too long, but not too bad. The more open looking area is at least refreshing to look at. And then you get to stage 11. Let's ignore the target time being 48 minutes. That is not the worst part. The worst part is the possible filter that is standing at the end. Victor fucking Delacroix. You better have your shit together by now, because if you want to choose other legions and try again, you're gonna have to replay the entire stage from the beginning. Isn't that fun? The stage, which just for you, is the longest of the game for some reason. Even after leveling and getting all these cool abilities, Delacroix still kicks my ass several times until I manage to defeat him. A bit frustrating, but nevertheless, moving on to stage 12. It's the prologue level, but now it ends even sooner with the boss from stage 2, which now has a shield. That could be worse. But hey, check out this cool shit you can do. Another complete stage, and what does the game decide to pull? Now all of the stages have different, more powerful enemies, so if you want to farm more XP, in theory it should be easier. The problem is that the new enemies are now back to sponge tier and take way too much damage to die. So now this is treading the I don't want to replay this, but hey, at least now completing these new stages do give the biggest XP size item, which gives you a stunning 5 million XP. So of course I used them all to level up my legions. The problem in this is that those XP items are limited to 6 in the entire game, which comes up to 30 million XP. And beside those items, farming for XP takes a while, even in later levels. I'll explain why this is worse than you may think a bit later. Okay, now if you want to get Thanatos, you are forced to play some of these new levels, so get to it. You do want the coolest legion, right? Searching extends through all the levels for some hours, but eventually all the pieces are collected and finally, Thanatos is yours. But nope. So, you know how you can level the stat force, which to every other legion raises the amount of legions that are summoned for each crest? Well, that doesn't happen to Thanatos, as one is already too powerful. What happens is that you just got a Thanatos egg. Useless egg that can die from any attack, forcing you to level the stat force for him to not be completely useless. So you spend 10 million to level him up the first time, and what do you get? A juvenile Thanatos. Oh for... And then it hits you. The XL items that gave you 30 million XP, they were for leveling Thanatos to its regular form. So you're kinda forced to farm again for hours for only the form to change, not even caring about the other 4 stats that will take even more hours to level. Unfortunately, after getting into the last form, is that you realize you still have an extra spiritual gem, one more spiritual gem for an extra legion. Then you use it on Thanatos and 50 million XP for perfect Thanatos. It will take me even more hours than before, again from the beginning, to get enough experience to level this fucking guy, and by that point I wasn't even counting the other stats. And 7 hours later, I didn't even care anymore. I had the strongest legion and I just steamrolled through the last stage. And by the end of it, I gotta admit, I don't even like the look for the perfect Thanatos. I prefer the normal version, with him punching everyone instead of just barrel rolling all over. At least the cool special ability was longer now, I guess. Luckily, the final boss was separated into a different stage, or I would flip my shit again with that. Some story stuff happens. Arceus shoots herself on the head but somehow just hits her arm.
I'm alive.
What? Thanatos actually punches an almost full bar out of Delicant. which makes him realize that he was the one that started all of this bullshit, but doubles down on the plan, cause let's be honest, I would probably do the same to try to save some face. And then the final boss appears, but his little hands don't help stopping T-Dog and his corkscrew barrage. And then the final, for reals, final boss appears in the form of the boy's girlfriend, strutting with all of that demon ass, just to start sending other enemies after me. A final disappointing boss battle after, and bam, Chaos Legion is defeated.
We're here to kill Chaos.
Yeah, by this point I kinda want to punch Chaos too. Oh, and look at that, Yoshinori Ono was the producer, now I also want to punch him. Like it wasn't enough, after the end you can see your total results, being able to check out what they call Side A and Side B stages. The problem is that, if for some reason you didn't complete a stage, like replaying stage 9 with Sig, you can go back once you unlock Side B, so that's a great design choice too, huh? And for that final reveal of Salt in the Wound, I like to play games without knowing too much about them, at least until I complete them once, which only led me to discover after the end that all those monster generators, the one that took way too much time to kill, could have just hit them exactly on top of their spike to basically kill them instantly, cleaning entire rooms in seconds. Do you even realize how many hours I have lost farming without knowing that? Because I also don't know cause my file got corrupted. That's how cursed this game is. At least you can play through the entire game as Arcia now, so that's cool. I do recommend a controller with turbo for that, otherwise it's Carpal Tunnel City for you.
Chosen one! I'm coming! Chosen one! I'm coming! Chosen one! I'm coming!
So here I was, 30 or something hours in, and I still didn't know if I liked the game or not. It certainly had some great elements to it, but most of it was obscured by some very odd design choices that could have been easily corrected, especially the difficulty spikes being all over the place. While I was finishing putting my first thoughts into the script, I decided, just for the hell of it, to check out the Japanese version. Maybe I could find some extra material to finish up this video. Yeah, like that, that's funny. And then I found it. Something that I didn't think it was possible. The good version of Chaos Legion. It was never an industry secret that sometimes the publisher would ask the developers, would you kindly crank the difficulty just a bit? You see, renting games was always big in the US. And a longer game would mean a longer renting period, which means bigger revenue. So when the publisher sees something that can be beaten and taken back in the same day, what do you think happened? Look at these two screens. You see a difference? Cause I do. Why is the experience required almost 4 times the amount of the original release? I don't think you realize the difference this makes, so here's the final time for the first playthrough in both of them. Take a wild guess on which one was the better game. This changes so much of the gameplay design, you can't even imagine until you go through them side by side. A normal playthrough without replaying stages, now gave me so much XP that I had the courage, the audacity to finally take off Malice out of my team, and I still managed to complete the next level in half of the time. The experience items are actually useful now, as they can be instantly used to pull the new acquired legions up to the same level as your current ones. Shit, I used Flood for one stage, and after that, and plus a couple of XP items, I managed to instantly unlock the double jump, so I didn't need him equipped. No grinding, no farming, fun only. You must be wondering, the XP items must be balanced around that, right? Nope, it's exactly the same. Remember when I spent 5 hours farming for perfect Hyper Ultra Instinct Thanatos? Because there weren't enough XL items, even if you collect them all? It took me 4 XL items to level him up from start to finish. 4! 4! I had actual stages left to go through after he was in the last form, not just barren wastelands from which I had scrapped each living soul to feed this hungry boy. And no, I am not done with this part. You see how you can get a bigger experience multiplier by doing better in the stage? Getting you more XP if you play better? Do you see a problem between these two versions? They didn't update the target scores for the new experience balance, which makes it harder to get, which means less XP, which means it only gets worse as the levels go on. I was now unlocking abilities at a great pace, leaving me with enough options to pull some cool stuff with. It makes you feel powerful that much faster, but the fighting pace never got as weak as Dynasty Warriors, with enemies still being able to push your shit around if you weren't careful, but at the same time, you were kicking their shit in just as fucking much. And try to guess how many healing items I have used in the entire Japanese playthrough. 0. No clunky menus here, breaking the gameplay flow. Not only that, in the Western release, it seems that the large type of healing items were limited to 2 of each, where in this I managed to get it up to 8, for those people that really just want to bomb it up from start to finish. The entire organic based metallic enemy system was still there, helping with the extra damage, but it never stopped me from trying different Legion synergies, as the damage I was doing didn't mean I took 1 full minute of spamming to kill an enemy if I forgot to equip the correct Legion at the start. And it's not like this was an isolated case. The same thing happened with the original Devil May Cry 3, when Capcom decided to put the Japanese hard mode as the Western normal mode. But at least they didn't put Stinger costing 4,000 orbs! In the end, what does this all mean? That while Japan remembers the game as an interesting short game, everyone else shits on it for the clunky systems made abhorrent for its sponge enemies. Yes, there is still a lot of stuff that they could have done for this game or for a possible sequel, like switching legions during stages or the Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition Turbo option. But seeing how the game already has trouble running at 60 with such simple maps and low visibility, it would probably be impossible. So, what do you do with all of this information? If you want to play the game, probably play the original Japanese version, even if you don't understand the story or what abilities you are unlocking. I'm certain that you'll have a better time than the Western localized experience. It would be good if you could get a translation of it, then we would have the best of both worlds. Anyway, it is a shame that Capcom never used this kind of Legion system for anything else. If this had a sequel, I bet they could have made an amazing game. At least they should have used it in Devil May Cry 5 or some other series that has such high action. Too bad there isn't anything like that.